The enemy were certain she had been erased. As their assault rolled over the ridge and smoke drowned the valley, they cheered too early, lifting trophies from shattered stone. They told themselves the Marine sniper was gone, another ghost claimed by the canyon. What they did not know was that the call sign on her dog tags had never been chosen by accident. Marina Ghost Cortez was about to prove why the deadliest soldier on the field is sometimes the one you swear is already buried. Hey soldiers, sound off in the comments. Where are you watching from? Hit subscribe and stay locked in for the next mission. Staff Sergeant Marina Cortez was 27 years old, her black hair braided tight against the nape of her neck, her dark eyes trained to pull meaning from the slightest shift of shadow. For 5 years she had been a scout sniper with the 3rd Expeditionary Recon Regiment, and in every platoon lounge and barracks hallway she had carried the same paradoxical reputation, the Marine who shot like a machine. And the Marine half the unit still doubted could survive the isolation of the hunt. Her scores were unquestionable. Her presence in the Corps, even after years of combat deployments, was still questioned in whispers. Her road into the Marines had never been straight. Sierra Blanca, Texas, is not the kind of town that breeds soldiers by design, but it forges toughness in anyone who listens to the desert. As a girl, Marina learned from her father, Mateo Cortez, a former recon tracker who later worked as a border ranger. He never taught her to fight. He taught her to vanish. The silence of the arroyos was her first classroom, and the patience of long hunts was her discipline. Wait. Her father would tell her on mornings when the sun took hours to climb and the jackrabbits refused to break cover. The desert will give you what rushing never can. He showed her how to read the wind on a single blade of grass, how to sense the rhythm of a patrol from a patch of bent stalks, how to turn footprints into misdirection. From that, she learned 3 truths. Observation is a weapon, breath is a trigger, and vanishing at the wrong time is worse than not firing at all. By high school, she was beating seasoned shooters in local competitions, teenagers and veterans alike watching a girl with a borrowed rifle topple their scores. At 18, she enlisted, defying her family's softer expectations. Recruit training only confirmed what rumor already suspected her. Marksmanship wasn't just excellent, it was uncanny. Still, the real crucible was Scout Sniper School. Men twice her size dropped from exhaustion or cracked under the solitude. She carried the desert inside her, the endurance to crawl until the sky itself blurred, and she graduated 3rd in her class. Her call sign was born on her first deployment. For days, she remained in overwatch positions that enemy patrols swept again and again without detecting her. When she returned with intelligence and kill reports that shifted the tempo of an entire battalion's patrol routes, she had already become a rumor among her own Marines. 15 high-value targets fell to her rifle on that tour, none of them ever catching so much as a glimpse of the shooter. She was Ghost. But reputation is not protection. Colonel Alden R. Hargrove, commander of her regiment, was 50 years old and as old school as his medals suggested. He valued marksmanship but distrusted the idea that a young woman could bear the mental corrosion of being alone behind enemy lines. She shoots like a machine, he conceded in private. But let's see what happens when everything breaks. That test arrived not with ceremony but with orders scrawled across a briefing folder. A command hub hidden in the rugged folds of the Canyon Valdez was coordinating ambushes against coalition patrols. Reconnaissance was required, track personnel, map defenses, and provide precision target data for upcoming strikes. The 4 Marine element was built for stealth and speed. Sergeant Jonah Graves Mercer would lead. Corporal Eli Static Park carried the radios and encryption gear. Lance Corporal Thomas Rook Vela served as forward observer. Cortez was their sniper overwatch, their scalpel and insurance, inserted by UH-60 Blackhawk roughly 10 kilometers from the objective. They moved under canopy to avoid thermal scans and aircraft. For 48 hours they watched, noted, and pieced together the puzzle of patrol cycles and communication patterns. Marina's optics picked up fragments the others might have missed: a gate that opened irregularly, A patrol leader who lingered too long before turning, and her notes filled page after page with sketches, timings, and wind calls. But in war, every pattern is temporary. What they could not know was that small drones and thermal pickets had tracked their insertion from the moment boots touched soil. While the Marines believed themselves hidden, the enemy was already tightening the noose. The dawn of the third day looked ordinary. Then the valley erupted. Mortars screamed into the ridge with surgical precision, turning their blind into a slaughterhouse. The concussion shattered brush, flung dirt into the air, and collapsed their careful observation post in minutes. Machine gun fire stitched through the trees, herding them toward kill zones. The enemy wasn't probing, they were erasing. Graves shouted over the din, voice flat with urgency. Break contact. Pull toward extraction points, conserve ammunition, prepare coordinates for air support. For 2 days they had been the observers. In an instant, they became the targets. Static was hit first, shrapnel tearing through his leg. Rook was forced to ration his last magazines. The squad's comm spat static as Graves called for close air support. The answer came with the cold arithmetic of operational reality. Weather and allocation meant no strike package for 40 minutes. The enemy was 2 minutes away from overrunning them. Ghost. Graves ordered, "Get to the ridge. Make them bleed." She moved like training had burned into muscle. Compact steps, low silhouette, each breath trimmed to its minimum, sliding into a slit of stone. She settled the M40A6 into her shoulder. At 550 meters, her first round cracked the air, and a machine gunner crumpled across his weapon. The volume of fire dipped just enough for her teammates to reposition. But one shot buys seconds, not survival. The enemy pressed harder. Mortars crept closer, claws dragging through soil. At least 24 fighters, closer to 24 by her estimate, funneled through the valley with the ease of men who knew its folds. The Marines were outnumbered 6-1. She kept shooting. Another burst commander folded. A spotter fell back clutching his chest for every life she claimed. Another rifle appeared. Then came the thunder no one can anticipate. A recoilless rifle round, or perhaps a shoulder-fired RPG, struck the ridge itself. The blast hurled Marina through dirt and shattered rock, slamming her into the ground. For 10 heartbeats her world went silent. When vision returned, she lay bleeding among rubble, rifle torn from her grip. Fighters rushed past, triumphant. One pried the M40A6 from the earth, lifting it as a trophy. They declared the sniper finished. What they did not see was the faint rise and fall of her chest, the stillness she had practiced until it looked like death itself. The ridge fight ended in ruin. Graves and Rook were killed. Static bled, pinned and barely conscious. The enemy swept the area for nearly 2 hours, kicking bodies, taking souvenirs, laughing as they proclaimed the American sniper dead. They never realized she was still alive beneath the ash. Night brought a different rhythm. Pain lanced through her shoulder, but her plate had absorbed the worst. She crawled in increments, scavenged an M4A1 from a fallen fighter, stripped magazines with methodical calm, and whispered to herself, "You want to hunt Marines, then you'll learn what it means to be prey." Her vow was the threshold. In the 70 hours that followed, the canyon that had swallowed her team would become her terrain. The hunter had miscalculated. The ghost was still here, and the nightmare was only beginning. Dawn brought no comfort. Only smoke curling from burned brush and the sound of fighters combing through wreckage. Marina Cortez, presumed dead, moved with deliberate patience through broken terrain, blood stiff on her sleeve. Every breath was a negotiation, every step measured against the urge to run. Running meant noise, noise meant death. Ghost chose silence. She built her first hide inside the splintered roots of a fallen tree, layering brush with the precision of scout sniper school drills. The enemy believed the ridge secured, and that belief became her camouflage. For the next 70 hours, she would exist between shadows and echoes. her survival tethered to discipline alone. With her M4A1 carbine scavenged from the field and limited ammunition, she rationed every shot. A single magazine could not be wasted on suppression. Each trigger pull had to dismantle the enemy's confidence. The first night, she observed patrol cadence two-man teams sweeping the perimeter. Loose with discipline, relaxed in false victory. At 380 meters, she engaged one target who carried her stolen M40A6. The shot folded him instantly. His comrade froze, screamed, and broke cover, only to be ended by a second round. Ghost retrieved her rifle under cover of darkness, reacquiring not just a weapon but her identity. The legend resurrected in the canyon. By morning, the enemy's tone shifted. Voices rose. Commanders barked harsher, and fighters stared into tree lines that once felt safe. A sniper they had claimed dead was suddenly dismantling them, one by one. Rumors spread faster than radio signals. She was not human. She was a phantom. That myth was the weapon Marina intended to sharpen. She used deception as force multiplier. Empty helmets placed in foliage drew bursts of enemy fire. Discarded magazines arranged like a trail led patrols into kill zones she pre-sighted. Every move was patient, deliberate, teaching them the same desert lesson her father had taught rushing kills. By the second night, 3 more enemy fighters fell to Ghost's rifle. Each shot was surgical. 1 squad leader, 1 mortar observer, 1 machine gun assistant. With every body lost, command cohesion frayed further. What began as a search turned into superstition, a fight against shadows they could not outnumber. The third day began with enemy commanders furious and paranoid. They widened patrol sweeps, burned brush, and fired blindly into canyons. Still, Ghost waited. Hunger gnawed at her. But discipline overruled instinct. She drank condensation from leaves, rationed half a protein bar scavenged from Graves' pack, and kept her pulse steady. At midday, she staged her boldest maneuver. Using a claymore mine Graves had set before death, she lured a 6-man patrol toward the ridge. A tossed canteen drew their eyes. A staged footprint guided their boots. When the first man brushed the tripwire, the blast tore the canyon with thunder. Ghost's follow-up fire cut down the survivors before they could report. 6 fewer enemies and a fear 10 times heavier. Radio chatter intercepted by her scanner revealed panic. She's alive. She's hunting us. Commanders threatened discipline, but fear corrodes faster than orders. Fighters hesitated to patrol alone. They fired at shadows. They argued over who would step first into the brush. Ghost did not need to kill them all, only to let their fear eat them alive. As hours stretched, Marina alternated between sniper rifle and carbine. At close range, she set ambushes with silenced bursts. At long range, she kept her shots irregular, never predictable, never patterned, so the enemy believed she was everywhere. The canyon became a chessboard, and she played both sides until only she understood the moves. By the 40th hour, she had tallied 21 confirmed kills. But more dangerous than her count was the chaos she seeded. Enemy formations collapsed into scattered groups, no longer coordinated. Their officers shouted into radios that carried more desperation than command. Her body screamed for rest. Bruises from the blast spread purple under her fatigues, and the wound in her shoulder throbbed with each recoil. But fatigue could not outweigh memory of Graves, static, and Rook lying silent. Every shot carried their names. On the final night, she executed a decisive strike. A command tent lit faintly against the dark, betrayed enemy leadership. At 620 meters, she steadied, slowed her breathing, and fired. The commander's silhouette collapsed mid-sentence. Chaos detonated. Fighters screamed, ran in circles, some firing into the sky as if the Ghost had wings. That single shot ended the operation. Without command, their retreat fractured into full rout. By dawn, the canyon of Valdez lay quiet again, smoke rising, silence echoing where 3 Marines had fallen. Ghost had not just survived. She had dismantled an entire hostile cell with patience, precision, and a will forged in silence. Extraction arrived at first light. A UH-60 Blackhawk threading low through the canyon. Pilots expected to recover bodies. Instead, they found one Marine standing blood-streaked, uniform torn, rifle slung, eyes hollow but unbroken. She boarded without words, carrying both her rifle and the ghosts of her team. Reports filed later listed the engagement clinically Staff Sergeant Cortez. 21 enemy combatants neutralized, hostile cell dispersed, area cleared. But those numbers never told the truth. The truth lived in the canyon dust, in the fear she sowed, and in the silence where her brothers had fallen. Marina never asked for the spotlight. When she returned to FOB ironclad, she sat through long debriefs, signed stacks of intelligence fragments that would later become case studies, and faded back into routine. She refused interviews but accepted a transfer to the schoolhouse. The Corps didn't want a myth, it wanted to institutionalize what had worked. In the months that followed, Master Gunnery Sergeant Marina Ghost Cortez built a course that blended desert survival with modern precision engagement. Her students learned to read the wind as if it were a second language, to build false targets that drew fire, to turn the enemy's certainty into a trap. She taught them how to survive blasts, how to use silence as armor, how to turn scavenged kit into lifelines when standard gear was gone. Her story spread across units not because of rumor, but because it saved lives. The lessons were practical: how to shield optics from thermal sweeps, how to time movements against resupply windows, how to keep fighting when every plan had collapsed. Just as important were the psychological lessons that decisive action could still emerge from chaos, and that loss could be converted into mission continuation. She did not become a symbol by choice. The Corps made her one because her actions had reproducible value. Not everyone believed every detail, but for Marines who had been written off, for soldiers who knew what it meant to be underestimated, her record stood as proof defeat is never final if one person refuses to stop fighting. Marina Ghost Cortez didn't simply survive Canyon Valdez. She rewrote assumptions about who could hold the line when the world turned against them. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you thought was already finished. When the dust of Valdez finally settled, what remained was not just the tally of 21 enemies or the 70 hours of survival. It was the doctrine etched into every Marine who later studied her report. Patience is a weapon, silence is a shield, and survival is victory in motion. Her legacy did not live in medals or promotions, but in the Marines who carried her lessons into combat: the false targets, the waiting, the refusal to quit. They endured longer, thought sharper, fought smarter, and they carried the memory of a woman who turned loss into strategy and despair into victory. Because sometimes the unforgettable warriors are not the loudest. They are the ones who prove silently, stubbornly, that even alone, even broken, even written off, you can still change the outcome of a war.